Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.
Welcome to another episode of the Smart City Podcast. Today we're broadcasting live from the ARC Forum here in sunny Orlando, Florida. On this episode, we'll be examining industrial analytics with Uptake Technologies. I'm very proud today that our guests from Uptake include Andrew Soignier and Kane Grau. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
Great. How are you today?
Doing wonderful. Just finished the presentation.
Hey, that's a relief.
An excellent one.
Gentlemen, let's get started with a simple foundational question. Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you got started on your path to the world of industrial analytics?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks. Been doing this a little bit over 25 years. About 10 years in automation and OT technology as an engineer in rotating equipment and process safety. I then actually got recruited into enterprise software back in 2007 and have never looked back. And every time I've kind of taken on new challenges, the gravity has always brought me back to energy and manufacturing and chemical, oil and gas around the latest technologies. And over the last 7+ years, that's evolved into digital and all of the advanced technologies associated with it.
So let me ask, for those of our audience members who might not be fully versed in industrial analytics, what is industrial analytics?
So I think the simplest answer that I've seen lately is being able to solve problems and answer questions across the enterprise. And being able to do that in a way that is ultimately facilitated with the technologies, some of them now we use in the consumer world.
So let's then look at what challenges might there be, and it might even be in these subcomponents of, I'm thinking data, probably need a data repository, maybe different sensors, but what are the challenges of deploying an industrial analytics system that gives you the ability to solve those questions that you might have?
Yeah, I think the advantage that Uptake has is that we've actually been solving this problem across multiple verticals, and that's allowed us to come up and understand the pattern is really, it's not industrial analytics by itself. The cornerstone across every market is data and the uniqueness of data across all the verticals and sub-verticals. And so at the end of the day, oftentimes, as many of the customers have shared, is even however long they've been at this journey and this process, data is still not only the biggest challenge, but now I think with the last couple of days, you really see in post-COVID the embrace of data as a cornerstone versus just a challenge. And so for each one of our verticals, we've had the advantage now of uncovering the patterns and finding the commonalities across really the asset-intensive sectors.
Yeah, I think that's really accurate. And I think at the end of the day, when it comes down to a big motto that we preach is connecting data, people, and machines. And that what we're trying to solve for data, people, and machines is irrelevant if we're displaying a windmill, tractor trailer, turbine, a pump. The right side of the screen has to still display what is the activity of that specific asset. what are the insights that we can give to the company that is going to allow them to make a different decision, with Uptake versus not having Uptake. And firmly believe that every machine's better if you have Uptake, because I think that the way we display the information and the way we can bring these organizations together across the enterprise, I think we do it better than anybody.
So before you deploy your solution, you need that data set. So what are the challenges in acquiring that data? How do you go about that? What are best practices in that domain?
So I think to kind of put it in layman's terms, each customer is their own cybersecurity challenge. And so, as we're kind of all familiar in everything kind of happening out and about in the world, if you just look at every customer, and while they follow a lot of, common approaches and patterns, they all have different sensitivity around their data. And so this kind of data conundrum or data problem, it really stems back to, while there's a lot of layers of technology due to the way things have been built the last 25 years, it's ultimately a security, protection, and isolation problem around how they had managed, how they grew up, and worked through the original analog to digital paradigm, and now how they're working through what's now a traditional digital paradigm to kind of full-on digital that we see today.
Andrew, that's interesting that you led with cybersecurity. Where my mind was going was that one of the biggest challenges was siloing of different chunks of data within the organization. Do you find that similar end users in a particular industry have similar repositories of data, or are they diverging in the way they do things?
No, they're actually more similar than everyone expects. And while there's nuance across, one of the reasons that we politely talk about silos is because there are different levels of cyber and stuff associated. And I think one of the biggest surprises, going back to the earlier point, is because we were able over the last 2 years to really take a step back and look at all the verticals, all their patterns as they had started to mature in industrial AI and analytics and those things. What we've actually seen is transactional data is transactional data, time series data is time series data. I can keep going. Other data sets are very similar, and then in the verticals they're in, they chose technologies that made sense for those verticals during a certain time period. And so there's a data commonality, and then there's a vendor selection commonality from history, and it's not quite as complicated as I think everybody makes it.
I think it's also forced us to reevaluate the landscape on behalf of the customer and who we connect to naturally. Giving an example of we're totally fine with bringing insights into our application, but the end state insight going into a work order management system on behalf of the customer, so they're not living between two applications. The insight itself might be triggered by Uptake, but the end work order ticket or the work order system that they may be living in much more than Uptake, we're fine with natural connectivity into those applications.
Fascinating. So as far as obstacles, we talked about data, then what others exist? Is it integration? Is it simply the digital transformation process of having a human embrace this new business process, or simply the new business processes themselves being created?
Yeah, I having spent the last 6 months pretty consistently on the road and interfacing across a lot of different customers, but more recently I would say with our fleet and our transportation sector, what I think I'm seeing that's just a really profound effect of not just our application, but I think in the utilization of data is potentially new roles that are coming into the industry that we were not envisioning even a year ago. And I'll give you a great example is a virtual technician. So think of a major fleet operator where we set a signal was coming off of a specific truck. The driver would not react to it. The truck breaks down. A virtual technician today is proactively calling the driver saying, your brakes are going to fail within the next 7 days. This is where you're going to be at that failure. You're going to be 300 miles away from home. You're going to be 300 miles away from the nearest repair center. I have the bay lined up for you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Bring the truck in. That is where the world is moving to very quickly. I have recordings, literally of virtual technicians telling drivers this very specific scenario. And so what I get really excited by is our ability to influence new roles like that. And I'm using the transportation sector. That's going to happen. I believe that job is going to come to the forefront across all sectors, where you're going to be able to proactively use data, proactively use tools, and avoid downtime, avoid major safety issues. And I really get excited by stuff that I see like that when our customers are using data in that manner.
That's fascinating. For the sake of our audience, while I heard the message loud and clear that data sets are becoming increasingly common and easily digestible by your and other applications, I know that Uptake has had major successes in a number of different verticals. Do you want to perhaps illustrate some of those verticals again and give us an application? We talked a little bit about transportation, but let's touch on some others.
I think your presentation an hour ago would be a great one.
Yeah, I think it starts with the fact that arguably the most progressive oil and gas super major, that companies beyond oil and gas look to the super majors for guidance of how they should invest money. Chevron is basically moving, ingesting, storing, and doing it all in their own secure Microsoft Azure environment. With Uptake, is all that data and that infrastructure are leveraging their infrastructure with all that data, is making that available, and I will argue in support of what Kane just outlined about virtual technicians, is being able to have all of this available. And the reason why there's such an interesting stretch the market case is because we've now seen through COVID the tendency of an integrated operations environment that really rooted itself, I'd say in industry, the most common were organizations with upstream organizations like oil and gas and mining. What we've now seen is the convergence of these integrated operation centers now showing up in manufacturing, in large plants, not even across geographies. People are bringing this mindset and this approach that the world's leading, basically asset-intensive companies have done. We're seeing it being brought to localized manufacturing, and it's really kind of becoming a little bit of a digital North Star, because people can define and make tangible, I'm going to put a integrated operations center in a city with a tech hub that means something to said company, tie it to the university. I've had the opportunity over the last years prior to COVID of touring these things. They were kind of coming, and now they've been accelerated in with post-COVID digital, all the technology finally kind of catching up, and it's creating a profound effect, because it's going to affect how you end up with your toilet paper, your toothpaste, and the gas in your car, because of the way these organizations are taking these learnings and then basically bringing them down market in their own companies.
That is fascinating. I come from the transportation, the public transportation domain, and as you undoubtedly know, there are for interoperable. There's 20 interoperable applications, standardized in open protocols, standardized applications for deployment on roads, like traffic signals, toll boxes, toll booths, weather stations, all of that, and all of those are plug and play, and they go into an integrated traffic center. For the last decade or so, we've seen a lot of dynamic message signs, where even the federal highway messaging signs are connected to the state and the county and there's cross-county collaboration, all of those kinds of things. So I'm guessing that your applications also would allow collaboration between ecosystem partners, let's call it.
Yeah, and I think actually, one of the biggest breakthroughs that we talk about holistically in digital with cloud, if you just double click on that, the real accelerator is data lakes have become really integration platforms. And one of the topics we've covered today with a couple of customers is the fact that you're able to use production data through prototyping, put things back into the business, leveraging the actual data without impacting the actual operations of any kind. Could be a vehicle, could be a facility, it doesn't matter. And so what we've seen is the companies that have really jumped out to invest in this, it could have been for all sorts of reasons. They've really kind of cracked the eggs on leveraging any of the core cloud companies' data lakes as integration environments to just reduce their overall cost and exponentially increase their speed.
Sure, it's not surprising. I mean, across all types of industries, industrial, commercial, even public infrastructure. Just like in your phone, we're seeing an open API with a data set is creating applications that, frankly, we wouldn't have thought of. And that only is continuing to grow. What do you see for the future of analytics platforms?
I mean, just I have the process expert next to me, and I've been gravitating a little bit more to the transportation side. I would say the latest McKinsey report that I saw of, insights in general, predictive in general, being $100 billion industry by 2030, dominated by the way, predictive maintenance being almost, more than half of that 100. But all the connected vehicle insights, what we're seeing with, data across the vehicles, and I think the role that all these different types of organizations that are here at the event today and that are going to be incubated over the next 2 to 3 years that are going to power things like autonomy or zero emissions or all things ESG. I think those, and when Drew and I are out, I would say 1 and 2 interchangeably are always cybersecurity and sustainability that are top of mind for almost any corporation we talk to. Across any one of those sectors that we've also talked about. And so what is the role that we're all playing here at ARC over the last couple of days? What is all the roles that we're going to be playing on behalf of those specific initiatives and getting into safety and cost cutting and everything else that's below that? But what is the power of data and what does it do to affect those lists of priorities? I don't know, that's what I'm specifically seeing right now.
I think you're spot on. And the way I would add to that is that's going to get more and more unlocked because we're going to be worried about platforms less. What you're going to see, which has been like our mission for the last 2 years, is it's all about our customers and our partners' platforms. And those partners could be governments, those partners could be state institutions, they can be, in industry groups that are doing it. But I think what we're really seeing now is organizations are interested in monetizing your capabilities, and it's less about, like, we're seeing the age of the platform basically fade away, and we've got three major cloud vendors. We've got whether it's very large companies, very small companies, governments, institutions globally that are kind of figuring out their space. Maybe even in some cases we've now hearing broader industry plays where multiple people subscribe into something. Clouds for X, Y, and Z. I think that is the inevitable place that we're headed based on how we're seeing organizations spend their money with us and guide us.
I would even say I think competitors are talking to one another. I think competitors, like companies, are talking about, can we build together on behalf of the customer, and can we make these solutions more seamless? And the things where you think that there's overlap, the overlap might be much smaller than you actually think. Together, the solutions, and just because what we do might be very niche to the organization, and the competitor might be doing other things, but in a joint way, and believe me, this is happening real time.
Well, clearly there's a dramatic need, and to continue on with the transportation example, let's drill down into really a very granular level. If, let's just say there's a traffic accident at an intersection. Let's just, for those of us in the audience that might not be skilled in all of this and schooled in it, is what I should have said, we had a lot of things happen. Police, fire, EMS, all comes out. Now, if they're occupied at a non-minor accident, at a minor accident, guess what? There's a reduced service to somebody else that may need them much more. Perhaps the telemetry data from those connected vehicles tells you the turning radius of each individual car, and if you come too close to the curb because you're just an absent-minded driver, maybe your insurance rate should go up. What about the impact of what hospital you go to, and the cost of that, the cost of closing the road, the cost of all of these things, about the simple impact to commerce of your Pepsi truck is delayed going to the 7-Eleven. We could go on for a long time with just a plethora of all of those somewhat small, impacts. There's in the analytics of, if we do have autonomous vehicles, they will very likely take the exact same path down the road. And what about the grooves that then warn in the pavement? Or things like that. Or autonomous electric vehicles may be so inexpensive, there may be so many on the road that there may be incredible gridlock in many places because they might be circling your block just looking for a passenger. Well, some analytics could solve that. Maybe only deploy the right amount and deploy some others that might have enhanced revenue somewhere else. It's really a fascinating time for all of this.
I love all that. I think everything you just said that's. I don't think that's here tomorrow. I think that's here in the next 5 to 10 years. I heard a great analogy at a conference that said nobody ever thought that, everybody thought that you'd have a horse in the barn and you're attached to your house forever. Well, then that got replaced by a car. And I think in 10 years, do you have a car in the garage, or is the car pulling up to your house and taking you from point A to point B? Who knows? But I think the advances are happening faster than we think. I do think autonomy will be, specifically in transportation, trucking, will be point-to-point hubs sooner than later. But all those challenges and all those data problems are fascinating to think that we can solve.
Some of them are nearer term. The traffic signal does have a standardized API that some data analytics folks are starting to embrace. The one that I believe is most exciting is the connected vehicle API with 150 objects that get broadcast only 100 meters, but 10 times a second, very low latency. That chipset's already in your phone, which is not turned on yet, and some Fords have it, some Cadillacs. That gives you speed, direction, and location. Gives you windshield wiper status, headlight status, road friction, if your wheel is spinning and you assume it's slippery. All of those are starting to become available, and the studies I've read are with a 7% participation rate, which is not so far down the road. Well, you start being able to intuit that data across everybody else. So that doesn't need to wait for the autonomous vehicle or autonomous truck or anything. Right. Some of it's already out there. And heck, a lot of public agencies already put out Bluetooth MAC address counters that just look for people's MAC address from the phone as they're going down the road, and they match it to the same address when you're a mile further down that road.
Well, and I think what you're starting to allude to is like, the technology's there. There's a set of problems that are rising to the surface. I think from just a city level, we're looking at safety, right? As an easy one, where we look at the cities that are transforming the fastest right now, they're investing in safety. And so being able, it's not so much wait until, to your point, a perfect device is available. It's leveraging multiple devices, leveraging the investments that they're making in law enforcement, in protection, to be able to, essentially protect the public. And then I think there is a supply chain backlog that we're going to see expedite, ultimately, autonomous trucks on the road, the hubs, Kane, that you mentioned, because at the end of the day, there's just a massive supply chain backlog right now. And so to be able to then use analytics now to be able to say, not when the autonomous is there, but how do we need to start optimizing so that we can alleviate the stress and the constraints in the supply chain problem. I think we're going to see this, especially now with what's ahead of us the back end of the year. We're gonna see that, basically.
Yeah, I agree. We're nearing the end of our time together, but I want to go back to Kane's comment about sustainability, because I don't think it's not just transportation. We focused a lot on that today, but sustainability really has three pillars: preserving or enhancing the natural environment, preserving or enhancing human quality of life, and then doing the two of those in an economically sensible, reasonable manner. Well, meaning you've got to pay for it. That human quality of life piece is the safer crosswalk. It's the job that you may or may not have. It's the fiber downtown. It's a vibrant, economic activity, so you could have a job. And all of this really, all of those three pillars get touched by this. The environment. If you route your transportation a little bit better, you're not going to have all those trucks sitting at that red light during rush hour. You can send them at night or whatever. So all of this really impacts sustainability and all three pillars of those. So it's just a fascinating time to be involved in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So gentlemen, we are nearing, as I said, the end of our time together. Do you have any last minute comments for our audience?
I was just want to really thank the ARC organization. It's just been a delight to get to see everyone again, familiar faces from the last 10 years of coming out here, minus the last 2. And the energy is completely off the charts.
That's great. Before we go, if any of our audience members would like to contact you, can you share some of your contact information?
You bet. Andrew Soignier at uptake.com, so andrew.soignier. And then the easiest way is cell phone. I don't mind giving it out, 225-229-5251.
That's awesome. And of course, the website is uptake.com. Do I have that correct?
Yeah. Reach out to us.
Yeah.
All right. And Kane, you're not so bold?
No, it's KAYNE.GRAU at Uptake. Just don't confuse you with Kanye, and you'll get through.
Perfect. Very good, gentlemen. This has been a fun session we've had here. Thank you to all our listeners again, and we hope to see you again on another episode of the Smart City Podcast.
Broadcasting from Boston, Massachusetts, the Smart Cities podcast is the only podcast dedicated to all things smart cities. The podcast is the creation of ARC Advisory Group's Smart City practice. ARC advises leading companies, municipalities, and governments on technology trends and market dynamics that affect their business and quality of life in their cities. To engage further, please like and share our podcast or reach out directly on Twitter at Smart City Viewpoints or on our website at www.arcweb.com/industries/smart-cities.